So we'll have to figure out kind of a standardized way to kind of kick these off.
Yeah. Well, I think this is good. This is good transparency, right?
Absolutely.
So get all set for our first HiredUp podcast.
Yeah. So HiredUp TV podcast, it'll be multiple different series and segments and episodes.
Absolutely.
I think that the value is going to be tremendous. We were talking earlier today with the Vayner team about bringing in social media influencers and just all different kinds of people, even people that are owners of local businesses, really to talk about just pieces of value in growing a company.
Right.
And our whole brand is about transparency. So I think
Exactly.
that doing something like this is hugely beneficial. If you want to kick us off today with kind of the topic and we can get into it.
Absolutely. So we were just talking, I think, in our weekly meetings, and we talked about the traits of virality, right? I mentioned that there's always a certain set of rules for anything to go viral. And I don't mean just in the social media times, right? Whether it's storytelling, I think there's always a certain set of elements in a story, in a piece of media that fits every bill for going viral, right?
Yeah.
Kind of also a pertinent topic here in 2020, right?
Yeah.
As we're recording this is November in 2020. So we're going to talk about going viral in a good way.
During the time of a virus.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's a great topic. One of the things that we have sort of decided as a company is not only to be an app, but to be a media company that sells an app. And this is a very, Gary Vee-esque idea. And I just think it's brilliant. It's really smart because if we can be the people who control a lot of attention, we can really sell anything. And, I just think that it's important that we are a place where people come for quality information and for value.
Exactly.
And so talking about traits of virality, I think is really important because growing an Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook page, all of those different social media platforms, you and I are always trying to figure out what are the trends that we can latch onto? Right. What are the ideas we can latch onto? What are things that we can build? What's content that we can make?
Exactly.
In order to, or content that we can make that's pertinent to the times or things that are catching fire.
Right.
So, I know that you wrote some traits about, some points about traits of virality.
Exactly. And just to clarify, trends are definitely important and trends come and go. Trends are always changing. But I think I have 8 bullet points here that will transcend any trend, any time, anything that's going on, any medium, right? So the first trait I have for a trait of virality is tell a story, right? People love stories. This is how we've communicated since we've been around, right? Since we've had the ability to communicate, we've always communicated through stories and through myths and lores and what have you. So, I think our appetite for stories is a reflection on the basic human need to understand life, right? This is how we connect with other people. Stories are a way to reach out to people and emotionally connect, hit those emotions, right? And so with every piece of content, we really want to humanize what we're doing and really want to take people through, beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't have to be a long form content. This works for short form content as well. And so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, how you feel about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because one of the things that we've seen works really well just in our day and age is total transparency of people's lives.
Right.
I said it this morning on our meeting. Some of my favorite YouTube videos out there are ones where people post what I do every day, what I eat in the morning, what does a day in the life of my day look like?
Right.
And I said it this morning. I said, I don't give a shit what these people do every day. I don't care. But for whatever reason, people are so attracted to just what humans do every day.
Right.
I mean, that's the reason that Instagram Stories is so successful. I remember when they released that, and it became huge because now it was no longer just a curated version of what people posted. It now became a real life, instant, somebody could turn on their camera and film and post right then and there.
Exactly.
And so I think that with a brand especially, and a brand that talks about transparency in our product, being able to do that just inside of our company is really cool.
Exactly.
And creating stuff that surrounds building a business, being in a startup, and all the things that come along with that is really unique. And that's something that creates, I believe, a very sustainable following.
Right.
Would you say that? Would you
Absolutely.
say so?
Absolutely. And people, I think more than ever, people love seeing, the beginnings of something rather than a complete product, rather than, something like a Ty Lopez, not to take anything away from Ty Lopez. He's brilliant.
You kind of remind me of Ty Lopez.
You mentioned that. Here in our garage, here in our upcoming
here in our
office.
studio.
Exactly. But when I mentioned Ty Lopez, I'm really just talking about these influencers who kind of show the lifestyle of having already made it, right? That's been very appealing to people for a long time, seeing the, whatever people personally define as success, right? And that's a very unique thing, right? Some people, just have a modest version of what success looks like for them. Some people really want the more materialistic version of success. At the end of the day, I think success for most people is some sort of freedom aspect, right?
Sure.
But I really think people are craving more and more of that journey, really craving more and more of, hey guys, we don't know everything yet. We aren't at the top yet, but we want to document this whole process for you. And it's a little more relatable, right? Instead of having someone on a pedestal, really seeing someone that you can relate to, like, hey, we're starting out, we're right here, you can be right here too. There's more of a connection there, I think, and then people become more invested in our story, in our journey with this. So I think it's a really great way to emotionally connect with people.
I agree. Well, and think about the value that provides to people. Exactly. Being able to show them, and I think about it myself, being able to look back at where we've come, or how far we've come and where we came from, is really unique. And so for people to be able to do that with a brand, people like that. People like being able to connect with the beginning stages of a brand and each iteration and process that they go through. They really enjoy that. And so I think it's a great way to create. I don't know if it creates instant virality. Of course, there's a lot of different nuances that play along in that, but I definitely believe that it's quality content that's sustainable, that's stuff that people are definitely interested in.
Absolutely. And going into my second bullet point here is make people laugh, right? I think you want your brand to be associated with positive emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely things out there, news-related things that are more of like shock value or more kind of, that sort of mindset. But I think for the most part, long-sustaining brands, you really want that positive emotion with your brand. People want to come interact with your brand in whatever way and really get something positive from that, something that will benefit them. Again, going back to value, right?
Yeah. Talk about that. So you made a video that we put up this today,
right?
That was hilarious,
right?
And so when we were talking with the marketing group this morning, talking about, okay, our brand, there's a spectrum. Like if you take LinkedIn being serious and TikTok being not serious, we want to land somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
And so I think that we're definitely not afraid of being funny, in the light of also being serious. And I think especially right now too calls for a little bit more humor.
Absolutely.
But can you talk about how companies can be using that? And here's my theory. I think that there are companies out there that try to use humor and it comes across as very corny,
absolutely,
very hokey, very cheesy, very business funny.
Yes.
And it's not very funny.
Yes.
So how can company, as a designer, and you're doing this for us every day, how do companies use that humor in a way that complements their brand, that actually makes sense?
Well, absolutely. I think it really depends on the medium that you're showcasing, right? So like you said, LinkedIn, a bit more serious, although they've tried to get into video recently, and we're trying to take advantage of that. And I think there's a lot of potential out there, because I don't think anyone
It's not working very well.
It's not working very well, but the thing is, I don't think people know what to do with it. I think that's the problem. And so, in my mindset, if no one knows how to do something and that's available, let's show them how to do it.
It's a great point.
Right? Let's bring in that, like, I love that point, like LinkedIn meets TikTok. Like, LinkedIn has their own version of stories, right? These are short form content. So I think we have room to play in there, and there's really not that many rules yet set for what works on LinkedIn as far as video, as far as stories. So let's make some rules, let's see what works. Let's try some things.
I agree.
Speaking to what we posted earlier today, it's a new short series that I formatted for Instagram Reels, and we actually might use this for TikTok as well, because it's a very similar format. But Evan and I have talked about, not just putting out content for the sake of content. There's many other brands out there that are talking about, best practices as far as resumes, or as far as, the job hunting process, as far as, all these different things in the recruitment process. And we don't want to just be another brand that just puts out some word posts. We really want to make engaging content and bring in people who, frankly, might not necessarily be strictly on the job hunt when they're on social media. Like, they want to be entertained. They want a platform for that. So what we did was I developed this short series called How to Answer. And it's basically just me answering kind of out there interview questions, kind of like gotcha interview questions. Yeah. Not the typical, like, why do you want to work here or whatever. But you always, you always kind of get those questions towards the end of the interview or something, where they try to hit you with a out of left field question just to see how you'll respond to that. Right. So what I did was it honestly just came to me one day, and I said, okay, I'm just going to bang out 5 of these right now. Yeah. I have the inspiration. I'm just going to do this. So I put on a button-up shirt and a black tie, and I just filmed myself as I would, frankly, kind of like how we would use the app. Right. And I think that was another element in there.
Very non-curated, non-edited.
Right. So it was just me answering these interview questions, and I made it funny. So I answered them in a very funny, poor way a few times as an example of what not to do, what not to say, right, when in response to this question. And finally, at the end, I gave a good response. What would be the recruiter or the interviewer is really looking for when they ask that question. Yeah. So it provides value, but it also provides entertainment, and it's funny. Right. So it's kind of a balance of all those things. Yeah. So
I think it provides value for our candidates and our companies as well, because companies can see that and go, oh, I ask this every interview, and it's a really stupid question. Because the question was, what is your greatest weakness? Right. Which I think is a ridiculous question, because it's totally a trick question. Sure. And what's somebody going to say? Oh, I usually don't turn stuff in on time, right, or I'm not very punctual. Like, right, what am I supposed to say to that? Right. And you always end up saying some kind of roundabout, just like your correct answer was. Right. But I think it actually makes sense to show companies, okay, it's a good question, but expect these types of answers.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is. And again, like, whenever I would get that question, I would say something along the lines of how I answered it in the very end. It's something along we want to answer in a way where it's a weakness, but it's also kind of showing your strength, kind of showing,
Sure.
oh, I work too hard, or
Yes.
I'm a perfectionist or
Right.
something, you know. So it kind of
I work too hard. I care too much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Michael Scott's quote.
Exactly. So we're kind of making fun of that in the first couple. And again, it's short form content, 30 seconds long, which is the new max for Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
So again, it's just another way to tell a story and making people laugh. So,
Well, and real quick before we get into the second one,
Yeah.
or the third one, I spoke with somebody today about how they're a social media manager, and at their current company, they are struggling because it's an older company,
right.
and those people don't really see the value in having social accounts and things like that. And so my question for you is, we're creating content now for like what you did today.
Right.
How can somebody actually like if I was a social media manager or a brand designer at a company that maybe had never done this before, how can I take, say, filming something, and how can I have the eye to turn that into multiple pieces of content that add value? Because I think that's something that people struggle with. People think, okay, we're going to create some content now. Let's sit down and create that content. When I think what we've figured out is we're just going to do what we normally would do, and then we'll take that and put that out on our pages.
Yeah, exactly. And I also equate this, how I'm going to answer this, with another question, which is, how do I hack the algorithm to this insert social media platform, right? How can I hack the algorithm to YouTube or Instagram and stuff? And it's like, you can get all nuance, you can get all, you can know every little tiny thing, the right hashtags, you research all these hashtags, you have the perfect looking photo or video, but at the end of the day, is this providing value or is it not? And I think people get so caught up with the minutia of it all, and going back to your question, caught up in the minutia of, okay, we have to sit down and we have to create content. We have to all sit together and think about this, and it's hard, and it's a tedious process, when it's really not. You have to let go. Once you let go of all this stuff, and this is kind of like almost a general life thing, right? I mean, you can equate this all to, best life practices, but it's like, once you let go and just let things happen and stop worrying so much and stop thinking so much, stuff just comes to you. You get in the flow state easier.
Yeah.
Like you're referring to, we're just going to create content out of stuff that we're already doing within the office, right?
Yep.
And we can film one thing. We can film this podcast, for instance.
Right.
Cut clips of it, format it for Instagram story, Instagram Reels, format it for Facebook and LinkedIn.
Right.
We just so happen to have, a company that really could work well with LinkedIn and provide not only value but entertainment in that space, which is it's much needed.
I think a practical piece of advice for people too is, one of the things that you and I do is, if we're in a meeting, or if you and I are just talking and it's going somewhere interesting, you'll just start recording it. And then we'll just keep going, and we were going to have that meeting or that conversation anyways. So you can, as long as the people that you're working with are okay with it, just begin to capture those things that already happen every day, those meetings, those get-togethers, those conversations, and that can become excellent content that builds the brand, that then you can cut that up and create picture posts, and you can create videos and tweets, all kinds of things out of that.
Exactly. Like, film your stand-up meetings,
Yes.
It's so easy. Everyone has a phone, and frankly, they have great cameras nowadays.
Right.
So you don't need any special gear, anything like that. You just hit record and you're off, and you don't really even need to edit stuff, because frankly, this is another thing we've talked about, is the over perfection, over curation of content.
Right.
And I think people really respond to kind of that raw, film and go content as well.
You know who I think is great at this is fashion bloggers.
Yes.
I think they're great at this, because they're always the ones that you see and it's like, okay, I'm making coffee. Here's my new coffee machine, and here's how I make coffee every morning,
Right.
and here's what I put in the coffee.
Right.
And then today I'm going to take my dog to the vet, and here's the vet that I take it to. It's what they have the eye for is they recognize that everything they do, maybe it's a normal day for them,
Yeah.
but other people would find tremendous value in that.
Exactly.
And like, how many times have you shown something that you do every day to another person? And they go, "Oh, I'm going to start doing that."
Yeah.
That's all that's what
Exactly.
you do that in a business all day long. So
Yeah,
having the eye to just recognize, and I think it's a muscle. I think you just
It
have
is.
to exercise
Absolutely.
that of going, "Oh, we're having a good conversation. Let me pull out
Right.
my phone and record this because
Right.
I can use this later."
Absolutely, absolutely, and just like you mentioned, fashion bloggers, filming their cup of coffee, making a cup of coffee. Where there's people out there who are following fashion blogs, but also like coffee.
Yes.
It's like, there's people that also like dogs too. What a surprise!
What camera are you using
Exactly.
to film this?
Exactly. That's always something on YouTube.
Always the
People are
question.
always posting
kind of
exactly
gear?
what kind of gear they're using and everything. That's always a question that comes up. Like you mentioned before, some of your favorite videos on YouTube and Instagram and stuff is, here's my daily routine. Here's what I eat in a day.
Yeah.
So I think that's just super great, easy content because it's stuff you're doing already.
Yep.
So my suggestion for people is, it is important. Social media is important. Okay. Especially, like you kind of mentioned with someone who's a social media manager at an older company.
Yep.
I would also recommend in those particular cases to really, people like to be shown, especially like an older generation, they like to be shown stuff.
Yes.
So I would say make content and make it nice and then show them.
Yes.
And then, maybe back it up with some analytics or something like that.
Right.
And so that they can see the numbers, they can see the content instead of just talking to them about it.
Yes.
Actually having something visual for them to see.
Totally agree. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but I think that this is just practical advice for social, and we're going to do a segment on this too, where we actually interview social media managers.
Absolutely.
I think that something that many of them should be doing is, if you are looking for a job, or if you have a job as a manager, maybe you just got hired as a social media manager.
Right.
Exactly what you said. Just kind of hover around for a couple days, collect as much content as you can, and then make a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Put it up on a board or on a page and show the people that you're working for all of that stuff. Because exactly, people get so bogged down in I call it, we same thing a lot of times with our developers. We get caught up in ideal land.
Right.
And it's with our app, sometimes we get caught up in features and, these cool widgets, and we could make it do this, and what if we put in this navigation? And at the end of the day, you kind of sit there and go, okay, well, just make it, and then we can tweak it from there. Right. But just put something on paper that I can actually tangibly see. I think that's really good. That's really
Definitely.
smart.
So, going back to our topic, which is traits of virality here, and this is all stuff that fits in, right? So number 1 was tell a story. Number 2 was make people laugh. Number 3 is to challenge or confirm people's assumptions. I think that's a really important aspect that helps things go viral, right? If you were to make a video on, I'm just spitballing here, but the sky is not actually blue. Here's proof, something like that. Like everyone knows the sky is blue, right? So that's something that instantly grabs attention. Okay, here's something that I've always known to be true.
Yeah.
I'm interested now in seeing what this person has to say, whether I agree with it or not, right? Or you can completely turn it around and use that to your advantage, and it's a completely different video or piece of content, right?
I like that a lot.
So yeah, and you want, tying content with, what was I going to say? So I think that's a really important idea as far as getting videos to go viral is, what are people's assumptions about something, right? And how can we focus in on that? How can we challenge that? How can we confirm that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to start talking about the app, but I don't want to do that yet.
Oh, yeah. We'll get there.
I'll save that for later.
Yes. Much coming with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I just think that's a great technique for people to use. There's many examples on YouTube of people doing this. I think there was one video where it was like, my red isn't your red, or something like that was the title of the video, and it was talking about how...
Do you remember the dress thing? The blue and white dress?
Yes, exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
That came in and challenged everybody.
Wildfire, that thing spread, yes.
And there was massive controversy because everybody said it's blue, and then the other people said it was white, and then some people switched.
Yes, yeah.
And I like that.
That's a great example.
I think that's a perfect analogy.
About. Yeah. And whether it's any, you're in a certain business, right? Maybe you're in real estate or something, and everyone's doing something one way. Let's talk about that. Maybe I can showcase how to do that in a completely different way and say that everyone's doing it the wrong way, right?
Right.
99% of people don't know this, right?
Right.
Those are always videos that tend to pop as well.
Yeah. I think with content too, I think that there's sort of a understanding of how it should look these days.
Right.
That I think we're at a time right now that it sort of needs to be shaken up a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's getting a little boring.
Yeah.
Just the way that people are making content right now. And I think that's what you've done really well with our stuff, is that it doesn't look like anybody else's.
Right.
It's not the white background, the white bars with a big, bold black header.
Yep.
And the subtitles and the little bar that is the progress bar.
Right.
Like, there's so much of that out there. And you can use that, but make it look different. I think that the content world right now is prime for something. It's prime for a wave of newness. There needs to be some change.
Absolutely. Well, and there's nothing constant in life but change, right?
It's true.
So, and that kind of goes into the fourth bullet point here, which is to utilize trending topics, right? Yeah. Tying content with current trends tends to reach more people, and you want to be always a bit ahead, right? You always want to be on the cutting edge of what is starting to trend, rather than what's been trending for the past year, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what you're talking about there.
I agree. I think that one thing that we are getting good at, and that social media managers out there, just companies in general, should be looking at, is what are the trends? What is the attention? Where is the attention right now?
Right.
Is it on the green and blue dress? Let's make some stuff around that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that are constantly out there that you see, and they kind of start out. You'll hear about it, or you'll see it, and you don't really know what that is.
Right.
And then you keep seeing it over and over again, and then finally you go, okay, what is this? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that a lot of companies can latch onto, is how can we actually take that, and how can, like, the dress thing I'm thinking about.
Right.
So that's in my head right now. So I'm thinking, like, if that was for us, what we probably could have done there is we could have just made it red.
Right.
And gone, what color do you see? There's so many different things we could have done with that, that we can step in line with all of the other viral tweets or posts, or Facebooks or Facebook posts or stories about that thing.
Exactly. And to find trending topics, you have to go down and see what people are talking about.
Yeah.
You can't just look from afar. You can't just hear from your friend what's trending. It's too late. You need to go and interact on these platforms and see what people are talking about. See what people are talking about in the comments. See what hashtags are trending on that day. And kind of do some research around there. I think it's important for social media managers, whatever, to actually be a part of the community rather than just post content. Okay, I'm over here in my little corner. I'll post content. I'll make it kind of look like whatever you guys are doing now. And, because I again, like, when we're going back to transparency, when we're going back to, we really want to be this different company. We want to interact with individuals, We don't want to shout
Yes.
from a rooftop. We want to be right there with them
Yes.
every step of the way. And I think that's so important. And I think it's useful in turn, because then you can get instant feedback of
I agree.
what people's pain points are, what people are talking about, what are
Yeah.
people actually interested in right now.
I think too, one thing that's very unique with some brands, and so we pull some inspiration from Hinge.
Yes.
So the dating app Hinge, we've pulled a lot of inspiration from them, because the girl that actually runs those accounts is always on. She puts herself on the accounts.
Right.
So she will put her, like, I think the other day she did one where she's asking her grandma questions about dating or something like that, and it was her just selfieing those questions. Brilliant.
Yes.
Because I also think that a lot of brands, there's so many layers to actually get to the person creating those posts.
Absolutely.
And so being able to actually put yourself out there and be the face of it is really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it, like you said, it humanizes that page. It humanizes the company and the app,
Absolutely.
or the social media page, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And especially with Hinge specifically, I mean, it's a dating app, right? There are so many pain points associated with online, or
It's a content gold mine.
It's a gold mine, right? And they've chosen they have a good balance too. They actually address people's pain points in a sincere way, but they also make a lot of funny content, because how many ridiculous stories have all of us had
About
as
dates.
far as dating, and as far as getting ghosted or whatever they're talking about, all these things. So they're really good at setting their voice.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and this is what we kind of talked about in our meeting today as well, is stay true to your voice so that you can change your tone.
Yes. Do you remember the analogy that they used? I thought that was brilliant. He said, Russ was talking about, he said, if Chris was in the other room,
Yes.
and Chris was on the phone with his doctor,
Right.
and then if he got off and he was on the phone with his mother,
Right.
he would speak to each of them in very different ways, but I would still know that that's Chris talking.
Exactly.
Brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
Because I think that you can be funny, you can be serious, you can be sentimental, you can be all of these different tones, but always keeping the undertone of the persona of the brand and of the social platform.
Right.
I just thought that was really
Absolutely.
good.
And this is why I'm so excited about HiredUp, right? Because I think we've done, and you've done a great job before I came on of setting that voice. And Vayner, of course, has helped us out tremendously with that. But I remember coming in and just getting it, right?
Yes.
I just I knew how you guys wanted to talk. I knew how the visual aesthetic, everything.
Yes.
It just clicked with me so quickly. Because of that work that was done beforehand. So that's some foundational stuff I think that cannot be overlooked. And it's so important. Because I mean, if you don't know that, then you don't know where you're going. You don't know, you don't have an identity.
Yep.
Right? So you're just kind of out there in the ether, just latching on to whatever trending topics or whatever, designs or pop in or whatever, and it just feels inauthentic.
You don't know who you actually are.
Exactly. So going into number 5 of the 8 traits of virality would be inspire people to take action. Okay. Like, this is why content on Instagram and places that ask questions that engage their audience are so effective, right? If you're just putting out content there, that's just a one-way, here you go, here it is, and people can't really do anything with it, then you're really doing yourself a disservice, and you're gonna affect your growth, basically, because people like being part of something.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's any sort of groups, whether it's any sort of, people like being part of a collective. And inspiring people to take action is a two-way, it's a win-win, in my opinion, because you're engaging your audience, and in turn, your audience will engage you. And then you can take content from that. You can help yourself create better content that better serves your audience. And not only does this content get shared, but it has a profound impact on the people watching it. Of course, like, it can be something that's, I don't know, for a political cause or something, that's all great. But just in general, whether you're a business, whether you're just an influencer, what have you, engaging your audience, I just think, is so vastly important, and you'd be surprised by how overlooked it can be sometimes, of people just wanting to put out content and they're not getting any returns on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is, how do we not only post quality content, how do we come up with good things to talk about, how do we create an excellent product and application, but how do we also interact with people? I think that one of the examples that we use a lot is, I never go to the Uber Instagram page just to hang out and receive information.
Right.
I don't really know if anybody
You go to them for furniture.
Exactly. Yeah, see our latest update about that. All of the furniture in our office is compliments of Uber.
Fantastic.
We never go to those types of accounts to receive any kind of news or information that we really find super interesting. It's a lot of just, it's talking about their product, their service, and things around their company, which is fine. However, if you can set yourself up in a situation where you're putting out meaningful, interesting content every day on a daily basis, and it's things that people are interested in and that people can use, whether it's in your space or even if it's not in your space, then that's very valuable. And so figuring out how to interact with those individuals, figuring out how to interact with people that are that are following you, that are watching you, that are paying attention to your company, your business, your pages, and that are using your software or your service, being able to connect with those people in a meaningful way is very beneficial.
Absolutely. And
it just does so much for your it does so much for your brand.
Absolutely.
We talk all the time about we talk a lot about Barstool Sports. I have no idea what Barstool Sports sells. Right. I actually am unaware of how they generate revenue. Right. I do not know. But I do know that it's a place where you go to get funny content that makes you laugh, but also get stuff that makes you think and is informative.
Right.
And so whatever they push through that branding strategy is going to sell.
Exactly. They're a huge part of just knowing their demographic and knowing the culture of their demographic, knowing what interests that demographic, and really engaging that and really engaging them. And I think that's, like you said, that's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. And with that also, Barstool, that's just kind of just to go on to the next trait here. Barstool's very good about this, is have unexpected twists. Right? You definitely, this is part of engaging people. This is part of keeping things interesting and making yourself a unique and different account, social account, or business account, is have unexpected twists. What is it? If you're just doing what everyone else is doing, you're just going to get caught in a crowd, and it's just so, especially accounts like Instagram and Facebook, they're just so oversaturated at this point, and the only way to really get that organic reach is to be different, is to take risks, is to flip whatever's going on, whatever everyone else is doing, and flip it on its head. Mm-hmm. This is often the most memorable part of any piece of content, is the unexpected twist at the end. Mm-hmm. It's part of any great movie or what have you. It's No one goes out of a movie theater saying, "Oh, this was great," and you knew exactly what was going to happen the entire time.
Yep.
Right? So having unexpected twists, really taking your audience on a ride and really telling that story and then flipping it on its head where people are just going to be wanting more content by the end of it, I think is a hugely beneficial trait to incorporate into all of your content.
I agree.
Number 8 would be, and these all kind of connect with each other, as you'll see, is to have a fresh point of view, even about common stuff that we're talking about, you know? Like we kind of talked about with the posts that we've been doing on HiredUp social accounts, we don't want to just tell you, okay, here's the questions that you might get in an interview and here's the best way to answer them. We really want to provide you with a fresh perspective on these topics that have been talked about on many accounts, right? A lot of people on social media talk about the same stuff, you know, but what makes an account stand out over another one is that unique perspective. And don't undermine your personal experience, because everybody has a unique experience, right? So you could have the same topic, kind of like what we've talked about in past conversations, right? Morning routines. How many accounts have talked about morning routines, right?
So many.
You know, and we were talking about earlier was, you know what, something that a lot of these videos don't touch upon as far as the perfect morning routine is that it doesn't actually start in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It starts at night before you go to bed.
Yeah. Right?
In planning the day before you sleep. Because if you've already started your morning routine at 5 a.m. or whatever, you know, time you'd like to wake up, you're already behind.
Yeah.
Right? You're letting your day run you rather than you taking control of your day.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Which, that's an interesting idea that I just had, is we could do a morning routine or like a vlog style of the company.
I definitely had that written down.
Yeah, that's good.
And yeah, we could have like social takeovers, things like that. I mean,
absolutely.
Every single topic that exists can be explained in a new way. Mm-hmm. Every single thing that you can think of. So again, like kind of going back to the overall idea behind this, these traits of virality is there's always content out there. You don't have to try so hard to come up with content to group test everything out, you know, and think about what might appeal to somebody.
Right.
Like, do what's organic for you.
Yeah.
And incorporate stuff that you're already doing, and it all comes naturally, and it becomes like just a reflex. Mm-hmm. Turn on the camera. We're about to have a meeting. Turn on the camera. We just got 6 TVs for $600, you know, or $300.
We talked about this right before we broke the last time. There are always things happening that are interesting, and so I think some practical advice for just companies that are trying to create stuff for their social pages is everything that you're doing is noteworthy. Exactly. Everything, even if it's not interesting, even if it's boring, whatever, it's all noteworthy.
Right.
Everything that you're doing every single day, whether it's key stuff in on an Excel spreadsheet. If you are HR and you're doing really boring stuff all day, but you find that interesting, that's great. That's great stuff to post. I think where people struggle, Josh, is that it's, okay, well, how do I actually turn that into something that I can post? Right. How do I capture something that's happening? And perfect example, maybe you can walk through this.
Sure.
So today we had a meeting with a project manager that used to work with us as a contractor. We had a meeting with him, and me and Nika, our new full-time project manager, we had some questions to ask for Corey. And you filmed that meeting. Right. So I think what people struggle with is, okay, well, I can grab a camera, I can grab a phone, I can film that. But then what do I do with it? How do I take that? If I'm just a business owner of a small business or a restaurant or a cafe or a retail store, how do I take that and how do I actually turn that into a meaningful piece of content? Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 30 pieces.
Right.
How do I do that? Do I need to hire a Josh? Do I need to go find freelancers? Can I do it myself? Like, how do I, because there's so much complexity to that. There's so many different directions that you can go. And I have my ideas, but
sure, yeah. Well, I don't think there's necessarily any right or wrong answer in that regard. I mean, the whole goal is you just want to be putting out content, right? So whether it's you and you save money doing that, obviously, or whether it's someone else and they can maybe beautify it up a little bit. I wouldn't get too crazy with trying to make a perfect looking piece of content, to be honest with you. I think we've kind of touched on that before, is like over manicured content just looks fake, right?
It does.
And so a lot of these platforms now have stuff like stories, have, Facebook Lives, whatever, you can instantly put out completely raw content, and that's attractive to people, right? And also, I mean, if you're excited about something, that will show through the content, right? If you're talking about stuff that you actually don't care about or you don't want to be in this meeting,
people aren't going to be interested in it.
No, because you're not interested in it. Yeah. Like there's so many times where I've watched a piece of content or consumed a piece of content about stuff that I had no idea what it was about. But the people in it were so passionate about what they were doing or what they were talking about that is in of itself a trait of virality, I guess.
Absolutely. It creates interest.
It creates immense interest. Absolutely. That shines through the camera. That shines through every piece of content that you make. So as far as, actual strategy, I mean, like I said, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect. People like imperfection. So just posting that content and posting a little caption on it, right? Yeah. Here's what we're doing today. I mean, I filmed this meeting with a project manager, and I didn't film the whole thing. I filmed about maybe 10 minutes of it, and Evan and Nika, our project manager, our current one, they were talking about a particular screen on our app, like one screen, and we're getting the opinion of the former project manager in the meeting on a Zoom call. And that's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Because we really are trying to create a perfect app. We're trying to make a fantastic product that's really going to shake up the market.
Yeah.
And so these little tiny things, every screen matters in the process, and every part of that affects our consumers.
Yep.
And so as excited as we are about creating this app that's going to shake up this industry, that's exciting stuff. That's an exciting piece of content, because we're trying to make something even better.
Yep.
And present it that way, whatever meeting it is, like, it's a quarterly meeting. Maybe it's a meeting and someone hit a new goal or something like that. That's exciting stuff, and let that emotion shine through your content.
I totally agree. I think that the key there is, like, I've honestly thought about going through a period of time on my own social accounts as well as the HiredUp social accounts of saying, okay, we're not going to edit one piece of video except for clip it, but we're literally just going to post the video.
Right.
We're just going to take videos and pictures all day long,
right?
Not worry about editing one thing, and we're just going to take pictures and videos, and we're going to post all of that just raw.
Right.
I think that's very practical to do. I think that there's not a company in the world that cannot pull that off, because you can record it right on the app and you can post it right from there.
Absolutely.
And what you said, Josh, about we had that meeting about the one screen on our app.
Right.
If you could have a view into DoorDash, and they were, or Uber or Amazon, and they were sitting there talking about, you could actually see the people creating the page that you can actually see on your app, that you're looking at. You can see these people creating it on their computer screen, on their Instagram. How cool is that?
Right.
Like, that's so, like you said, and it's interesting. That's very interesting. Being able to see something like that and have that sort of transparency, that makes for really exciting stuff. And also, you think about down the road, it's going to be extremely exciting because, when the company grows, being able to look back on that is really neat. I just think that the practical way to do this fast and to execute and deploy it quickly is take out your phone and just start filming. And I'm very guilty of this, especially on my personal account. I think that a lot of interesting things happen during the day inside of our company, and being able to actually take that and just turn on the camera and record. I'm very guilty of this. There are so many things that happen every day that I just don't record that I should, because it's interesting stuff that I should just take out my phone and record it, or take a picture or film it and post it.
Right.
And I think that I need to get better of that. I need to get better at that. I need to set a number for myself. Okay, I'm going to post this many videos every day, this many stories, and then this many pictures. Because I think you have to, just to exercise that muscle. And again, I think that people appreciate the authenticity of just you doing it. Of course, the editing, it's all like that all plays into a brand. Right. But being able to just quickly push stuff out there, people like that. They want to see that.
And I think you've mentioned this before, like fashion bloggers are great at this.
Yes.
Right? Every little thing. Hey, I went to this cute buffet or cafe down the street. Not like a cute buffet. I don't think those exist. A cute cafe down the street, or I'm walking my dog, or, I'm watching this on TV. I mean, people like connecting with people going through the same stuff.
Yes.
That's huge. And kind of going back to, we wish we had a camera on for certain things in a company's coming up, right?
Yep.
I mean, this might be super geeky on my part, but seeing Apple coming up with the San Francisco font that's used on every device, that's like their flagship font that they created especially for Apple products. I mean, that's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm not a huge, I don't make my own fonts or anything, but I find that fonts, that whole thing is fascinating to me, about how a company decides on a font or something.
You find
like
the process interesting.
Exactly. And so being able to have a camera on during that process, I think, is fascinating for a lot of people, even if they might not initially think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And finally, number 8 of the 8 traits of virality that I have is have an underdog story. I think this is great, and I think this plays into also what we're doing too. I think we've talked about it before, and nothing against Ty Lopez and those types of people that started popping up on YouTube and social and everything, where they're showing a certain lifestyle that's very appealing for people, and they're selling courses, or they're giving value.
Yep.
Right. In how they achieve that, or some skills that they have that helped along the way. But I think there's really something special about, content from people that haven't made it yet. Content from people still in that process, and documenting that journey.
100%.
And and it's cool. Definitely, you see people, and you kind of put them on a pedestal. I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be at that point. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's very valuable, as far as, you're visualizing your future life or whatever you're doing, but I think there's really something that people can connect to when, you kind of take people through the journey with you, take people on the journey with you, and they relate to that a bit more, right? Because they see that you're right where they are.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything that's
different. You're just a real person.
You're a real person. Exactly. And I know you can speak to it a little bit about that as well.
being able to show the world that you're just a person is everything. I think that what happens is people forget the cool factor that they feel when they see somebody that's in a, like an interesting creative realm in real life. When you see an actor, we talked about this a few minutes ago, when you see an actor or an actress or somebody that you know from social media and you see them in real life, you go, wow, okay, that's them. But you very quickly recognize, and everybody says it, you quickly recognize that they're just a regular person. Like they were just getting a cup of coffee, or they were like, they're just pedestrians. And so I think that being able to bring people along for that journey in whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be starting a business. It can be if you're writing a book, or if you're, I think that people could do this during their job search. Like, why can't people that are looking for a job? I think that a YouTube and Instagram channel could explode if there was somebody who had gotten laid off, or who has gotten laid off from coronavirus, and they started a page that was like, hey, here's me documenting my journey of like what this has been like and how I'm going to get back on top. And they literally just recorded every phone call, every interview. They did time lapses of them searching on Indeed or whatever. Like, I think that process is so cool. Yeah. I think it's so interesting. I think people eat it up. Like, people love it. The only reason that vlogging exists is because people love to view the open and honest and real and transparent form of somebody's life. And I think that that is exactly the same for companies. I think that for companies, it's the same thing. I think that for companies, especially on social accounts, there's this idea that you have to maintain some kind of a level of separation. Right. And it's your business and your product out on the front lines, and then your soldiers are behind. And if you have a well-known CEO or whatever, then that person can be visible, but it's kind of like, it's just a little bit hidden. And I think what we've seen with companies like Barstool is that people in that company are extremely visible. Right. Like, I could pick out, if I was walking down the street and saw somebody that worked there, I'd know them. And it's not like they themselves are producing this excellent column or whatever. It's just that we have the transparency inside of their business. And because of that, we appreciate them because we know that they're just normal people. Right. And then what happens is we build them up and we go, wow, how cool. Which that's where the virality comes in. We're able to see that transparency, and therefore we think that it's really interesting. This is why families get famous on YouTube. This is why families get famous on Instagram, or like these TikTok families that play guitar during COVID together. All these different. That's why that happens, is because they're sharing transparency in their life, and people just, they love it. They eat it up. They think that it's the coolest thing in the world. It's no different than their family. Right. It's just that they've been able to tell a story. And that's the key. It's the ability to tell a story. It's, can you take your own life, no matter what it is that you're doing, and can you turn that into a decently interesting storyline? Right. And if you can, you're going to have people that want to check it out. I mean, go into Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Like, there are so many, and Amazon has stores now too, which is... That's a topic for Tech Tuesday. Right. There are so many books. They don't appeal to everybody, but someone's picking up that obscure romantic novel in the corner that you've never heard of. And I think it's the same here. I think that your story will appeal to a group of people.
Exactly. And so, I mean, to round this out, it really is, like you said, bringing it back. It really is about telling a story. Yeah. And how you do that in an engaging way, right? Making people laugh, challenging or confirming people's assumptions, utilize topics that are trending right now, inspiring people to take action themselves, having unexpected twists along the way, a fresh point of view about even common things, and having an underdog story. This really comes back to the whole idea of the hero's journey, right? Sure. That you see. There's that book, A Hero Wears 1,000 Faces, right? Yep. And it's all it's all kind of playing on the same trajectory, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think that, listen, this is how we communicate as a society, is by telling stories, and never for once think that, oh, my life's too boring, no one's going to find it interesting or whatever.
Yeah.
You have no idea what people, I mean, if cats have anything to say about this, you have no idea what people will find interesting on the internet.